All right.
You ready?
Yes, sir.
All right, let's do this. Welcome back, everybody, to Hook the Line. We're back again with this is actually going to be Wednesday, so a day back. But this is going to be our midweek segment that we're just going to talk through some interesting things. We're going to do a catch and release segment. If you guys have watched that before, we're bringing that back after a couple weeks off. And then we're going to do something new today. We're going to do a top 10 quarterback list in college football. This is going to be based off of how they're playing right now. So a lot of those preseason predictions we're going to throw out the window and just go off of what we're seeing on the field this season. So with that being said, we'll just jump right into catch and release. If you're new, the way that we do this is basically we'll say a statement, whether it be a coach, a team, players, or just a hot take in college football, and then we'll say whether we want to catch or release that, basically whether we like that or whether we don't like that. That's how it's going to work. So we'll just jump right into it. How are you doing today, Yusko?
Good, man. Um, Watched a hell of an NBA game last night. That was kind of wild. I don't know if you caught that, but got Thunder money line at a nice price. I'll say that, and was really sweating there for a while. My didn't really know if KD was going to come through. Like, hella guys fouled out in overtime and stuff, and what a game! I feel like that's the game of the year, and that's literally the first game of the year. So that's just great way to kick off the NBA season. I know we don't cover that, but it'll be in the background here and there, of course.
No, and you make a good point. It's not just NBA season. We got college basketball season coming up.
Yes,
We're also
sir.
going to be doing on here. So if you guys do like college basketball, not just college football, we're going to start that up pretty soon. Season gets rolling soon. I think Purdue's got an exhibition in 2 days, if I'm not wrong.
Yep, Friday. Yes, sir. Definitely gonna be tuning in.
Preseason, preseason number one.
The
Looking good.
boys, yeah, boys, we just need a little bit help on the rebounding, and you know, points will come. Obviously, that's our staple. But looking forward to a good season from the Boilermakers on the hardwood after a brutal start to the football season. But we there's a reason we barely talk about that. So
Yeah, yeah, it just comes and goes. Yeah, well, I got burned last night as well. I'm looking back at my parlay yesterday, and actually, in the middle of work, I placed a $1 for 21. It smashed.
yep.
Then I went and put a 198 for like 20, and I lost on the Avalanche last night. So
Oh, Mammoth,
right,
maybe.
right in OT, that one hurt. Not as bad as our dear friend Alec Oslowski. If you're there. Apologies for that miss. Put together a crazy 10 legger, like one for 500 and missed it by the Avalanche. So, you know,
Oh,
it makes sense. Also, if you're out there, check your trade box. I really need you to respond to this within.
oh boy.
So, we got a blockbuster thing coming around in the fantasy football league.
There we go.
Yeah, well, with that being said, we'll jump right into catch and release. We'll go ahead. I've got some ones written down here, so I'll go ahead and get us started with the first one. And this is going to be something that also, I'm a little bit close with. It is going to include my Auburn Tigers, but Mike Norvell and Hugh Freeze should currently be bagging fries through the drive-through window of McDonald's.
Yeah, oof, that's a tough one. I mean, because you look at Auburn, you look at their wins, you look at their losses. Their losses have been particularly, you know, there's a couple bad calls, a lot of missed calls, things like that that are really tough to put on a coaching staff when it's laying in the hands of the zebras and the stripes. Mike Norvell is one of those weird ones because like they haven't won a conference game in God knows how long, especially after that weird fluky undefeated season. Like so many question marks. I don't even know what his. Do you even know what his buyout is? Norvell is.
55 million.
Yeah, I mean that is just ridiculous. I don't know when does that contract expire? Like in forever?
I don't know. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
got some time if he's still around now.
yeah, that's just absurd. Um, if those guys do leave, those will be two premier jobs on the coaching market, which could leave a huge offseason waiting for us down the line with Penn State, Florida, all those jobs opening. Which is kind of why maybe I should release this because I don't know who you're gonna go out and get with all these other jobs open. It's kind of hard to compete with, the premier Big Ten program and then a premier SEC program with Florida. So I'll release it. I mean, Auburn's probably going to cut him just because he's probably a little bit cheaper than Norvell, and fans might be a little ruthless. So we'll catch Hugh Freeze and we'll release Mike Norvell if that makes sense, just because of contract and
Mhm.
situations. Because Norvell has not been great these past 2 years, and Hugh Freeze is having a rough go of it as well. So we'll
Yeah, I
see.
think he was tearing up at halftime of the last game, being like, "I
Brutal.
can't catch a break, man." I mean, yeah, he looks like he's fighting for his job, but I mean, with both these coaches and these teams in general, I think what's having them hang on right now is the recruiting classes, and eventually you got to just blow it up, even if it's you lose your 5 stars that you've brought in, you lose your big guys. But you got to blow it up at some point if it's not the right guy. So I know what they're doing, keeping both these guys around. Obviously, the money, but I think it's more. I think both these programs can pay the money. So I think it's more about they don't want to blow up what they built. But yeah, Mike Norvell and Florida State, 3-4 after the way you started the season is just that's got to hurt. So yeah, I think that's a good take there. I'd agree with you. I think Hugh Freeze should probably, if he loses to Arkansas, I think he's definitely gone. If he manages to beat Arkansas, which I don't even know at this point because Taylor Green is an animal. So like if he manages to do that, maybe he stays around, but he's on a week by week, maybe day to day basis at this point. So
Yeah,
yeah. All right. Well, if you have one, you can shout it out, or if you want me to go
I
ahead and
got you. I got you. Ready?
yeah.
Um, so what are we? Are we halfway through the year? Kind of, right?
Yeah, pretty much halfway through.
Halfway through the year, right? So got a lot of premier programs in the tops of the Power Four, right? Got a lot of good Big Ten teams, a lot of good SEC teams, few ACC. Big 12 is always going to be around, but I think, and this is I'm catching this before we even get into this, but I think, and you're gonna bring your opinion into this, but I think the national champion is coming from the Big Ten yet again. Going to be 3 in a row. I think that's a catch. I want to hear what you have to say about this because you're a little bit shaded towards the SEC, and I don't know overall. What
Yeah,
thoughts?
I'd agree. I'm assuming you're putting Ohio State as that like
Ohio
in
State,
or
Oregon,
in
Indiana is usually the
yeah.
one of
Okay.
those.
Yeah, and if I'm comparing like if we take top three, so Ohio State, Indiana, Oregon, and you compare it with let's say Georgia, let's say Alabama, so not in particular order, but Georgia, Alabama, and then who would it be behind them? It's
Whoever gets in, Ole Miss, Texas A&M.
no, not Ole Miss. I'm excluding Ole Miss from this conversation. I know they put up a good performance about Georgia. Like I don't give a shit. I don't
All right,
trust.
well then, how about you get Vandy in there now? Texas A&M.
Yeah, see,
Um,
here's the matchup I want to see. I would love to see. Oh, Texas A&M. You're right. You're right. It's Texas A&M right now for sure. But they're gonna fuck up at some point. It's Texas A&M. I want to see Vandy versus Indiana. I think that would be hilariously awesome. And so, if nothing goes to plan this season, my predicted national championship, I'm gonna put it out there right now that I would love to happen is Vanderbilt and Indiana. I think that would just be the
that
funny.
would be the People's National Championship. That would be awesome.
Yeah, that would be great. I
Catch and release that though.
I can't say that I disagree with you at the moment. I think Alabama looks back to what they are trying to do, and Kalen DeBoer's in his second year. I think he's got things a little bit more figured out. I don't think obviously they've got a tough schedule always, but then he's got the end with Auburn, which is going to be difficult going in there. But with how Auburn's looked at home recently, it's really not looking too scary. So I'd say Alabama's probably your top contender to go in there. Georgia's always going to have that fight because it's Kirby Smart. Um, but I'd say right now, logically, there's no argument that I can make that the Big Ten isn't going to be the next national champion. And until they prove you wrong, or me right, or whatever, or the SEC proves me right, then I'm just going to keep it that way because Ohio State looks like the best team in the country and one of the best teams that we've seen put together on roster in a long time. Just they look dominant in every win, 34 to nothing again against Wisconsin. Like nobody can hold a finger to this team at the moment. So yeah, I'd have to say I'll catch that for now. Although I will put my, I'm like cautious about it and I don't want to catch it, but I'll catch it for now. I'll agree with you.
Yeah. Um, Ohio State looks arguably better than they did last year. I think that obviously when you return the keys of Caleb Downs and Jeremiah Smith and you bring in Matt Patricia, a Super Bowl head like defensive coordinator, that's just like insane to me. Something we'll get into later, but Julian Sayin has been playing incredibly well for a sophomore.
Mhm.
Um, had some questions about him going into the year, obviously, how he can handle being the Ohio State quarterback and all that comes with that. Still early. I think that, it's hard to pinpoint a loss on their schedule in terms of the regular season.
Mhm.
Um, but I think that'll be a good Big Ten championship to watch because right now they're probably a lock to be in that game at least. And probably going to have to play IU, which will be a fun one because that's a home game for IU in Indianapolis. Um, yeah, I'm big on this Ohio State team. I like Indiana. We'll see how far they get. They had a good year last year, but lost in the first round on the road. They'll probably maybe get to host the first round game this year, which would be huge for them and Signetti and the boys
Mhm.
to get that monkey off their back after last year. And then they'll get that test against Ohio State in Indianapolis in December. So yeah, I mean, also we're not talking about Oregon, which is another good team that got a loss early that maybe is gonna scare some people away. But they played really well against Rutgers. I know it's Rutgers, but Dante had a good bounce back game after a few shaky starts. So I think the Big Ten is making their case here.
Yeah. And then the one thing I will say, and I do want to point out, is I also think a factor that plays into this is going to be the health and the battle testedness of these teams. And what I mean by battle testiness is not that like they've played good teams, but just the gauntlet that you've gone through and how tired you are and you have injuries stacking up. And when I look at the rest of a lot of these teams' Big Ten schedules like Indiana, Oregon, Ohio State, I don't see a lot of challengers on that. Whereas when I look at these SEC teams, I think they're going to be beaten up, and it's something you might see more with how extended the playoffs are now. With by the time teams do get to the national championship or they do get to the semifinals, they're just beaten up. I mean, we saw with Georgia, they didn't have their starting quarterback last year, derailed their entire playoff run. So just things like that, I think, are going to play a big factor as well. It's probably why I give a slight edge to the Big Ten at the moment.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, like I said, it's only halfway through, so
Yeah.
major shakeups are still ahead
Yeah, a lot of
for
ball left.
sure.
So that actually brings me, I mean, that's a really good one that you put out because it brings me, we'll do this as the third and final one, unless you want one more, but brings me right into my last one I had written down, which are the top 10 seeds in the college football playoff are going to be Big Ten and SEC. And then that 10 through 12 spot will be one Big 12, one ACC, and group of five.
Okay. Um, so top 10 is all SEC and Big Ten. Not a crazy take. I kind of like it, but I don't know. Georgia Tech played a really good game this past week, and a possible letdown spot against Duke, who has played decent. I know I didn't play great against Illinois, but I think that that's a team that could definitely get a top 10 seed. I know Miami had a really bad week. Carson Beck proved me right after a disgusting performance at home. But I think one of those teams will sneak in. I think Texas Tech is going to take care of business in the Big 12, and then the committee might feel obligated to give them a top 10 seed. And then your later seeds might go to those maybe more of those middle of the pack SEC Big Ten teams, like maybe we see Vandy in the playoffs, like you said, or maybe Notre Dame. I don't know. Maybe we see Notre Dame get a top 10 one, or they could be on the road this year as opposed to last year. So yeah, I'm going to release that. I think they give one of them a spot in here. I think Georgia Tech can go in and win the ACC and the ACC championship. They'll definitely get a top 10 seed if they can beat Miami, who we all saw was not who they thought they were. Um, and maybe it's also an open door for a few other teams, like I said, Texas Tech. I know they just lost, but they didn't have their starting quarterback, and they'll have more games to play down the line, including the Big 12 championship. Um, so a lot of room left, a lot of ball left, like you said. So I'm gonna release that for now, but we'll come back to that
Yeah.
later in the year.
I kind of agree with you. I'm probably going to release that as well. But I do think it's not out of the realm of possibility at all.
Definitely not.
It could,
If we were to rephrase that question and maybe say the second round of the how does the second round of the playoffs look in terms of all Big Ten SEC? Now that's something we could sit here and talk about for a few hours
okay.
because maybe like basketball for say a lot of chalk, right? And we did see a lot of chalk in the first round last year for football too, but with the transfer portal and all that comes with that, these top tier teams are not fun to play against. So
Yeah.
we'll see.
No, I agree. So yeah, a lot of ball left. I'm excited to see how it shapes out. We'll come back to all these later on and just see how they worked out, see if we were right or wrong about them. But that's gonna wrap it up for catch and release, and then we'll hop right into our top 10 quarterback list for this current college football season, where it's at.
Yes, sir.
Got nothing more to say. So, Yusko, why don't you take it away and
I'm
start?
leading us off. All right. Just to kind of go off of last week's top 10 list, I think that it was a little bit all over the place. I had Texas Tech and Miami in my list, which didn't really look great, but I've kind of haven't been high on Miami a lot, if you know me.
Yeah.
And Texas Tech didn't have their starting quarterback, so I would still keep Texas Tech probably in the 10 spot. Um, but Miami falls a little bit, and I would add. I know you were on big on Georgia Tech, so shout out you for that, and they would definitely be in my top 10. But moving into this week, talking quarterbacks, talking point guards, who's slinging it the best? Okay, and it's going to be pretty biased in terms of teams that are succeeding or teams that have been playing on bigger stages. So you're not going to see any fun ones like Jalen Daniels of Kansas or like freaking anybody like that who's maybe on a not so great team, but could make an argument because they have nice stats on paper, but they're not making a difference. So without further ado, number one for me, kind of a curveball, but I did mention him. It's Julian Sand of Ohio State. Kind of a crazy one, right?
Wow.
People are probably going to scratch their head and be like, what the hell is this kid talking about? But this kid's completing 80% of his passes. This is just an unreal start to the year for him, for a team that looks like they have no flaws. And I don't think he's proven to me to put him anywhere else but one. Um, he's got some big tests. I mean, Penn State's next week. We'll see how he handles that defense because obviously they're more of a problem going into the year. Had some trouble, some injuries, but we'll see how he goes down the line. Maybe probably the biggest test he'll see is that Michigan defense last week of the season. We'll see. But I'm impressed with the way he's played. Gets the ball out quick, puts pressure on the defense. I know he has the best receivers in the country, but still got to give the kid his flowers. The next quarterback is none other than I'm the biggest hater of, is Fernando Mendoza of Indiana. Listen, I think this kid's a product of a good system. You can throw out the term system quarterback. I hate that term, but he's probably the closest thing to it. They really do a good job of putting him in advantageous situations. That old line has been playing out of their mind, but they're undefeated, have a good road win, and they've impressed. So I got to give him his credit. He's got to be two, can't be no lower than three. And then with 3 and 4, I have the SEC boys. I have Ty Simpson at 3, Gunner at 4. Gunner played a hell of a game against Ole Miss. Um, he's had a crazy QBR in conference play. He's had none. I don't think he's had any lower than like 80 or anything. Like he's been playing lights out, threw the ball all over the place against Ole Miss. Had a decent game against Alabama, but that's why we have Ty Simpson ahead of him. I don't need to, stroke his thing anymore because that's all I've talked about for the past few weeks is him and his play with Alabama. But number 5 is going to shake things up. You're going to probably love this. I got Haynes King at number 5. This kid
I
is
love it.
just
I love
the
it.
epitome of a dual threat, right? I mean, he, doesn't really throw for a lot of touchdowns or, put the ball in harm's way, but he's a problem on the ground. And I think that ability is going to throw teams in the SEC a real problem. And I think it's going to be a fun game to watch when he goes and hosts Georgia at the end of the year. That's a game I'm probably going to be glued to. Probably going to be watching the commercials of that game. That's how glued I am to it. Um, so yeah, he's got to get 5 for me. That's a team that's really shocked me and probably a lot of people. But we all knew about him. He was an Elite 11 quarterback, which is a tribute to his national ranking when he was in high school. So shout out him. Number 6 is a kind of a curveball as well. I don't know if you're gonna like this, but it's Trinidad Chambliss. I don't know how he was able to go into Athens and do what he did, but that kid's been really good ever since he's gotten the starting job. And they put that lefty on the bench because he was horrible. Um, but Lane's done a good job with him. I mean, these quarterbacks that come out of Ole Miss have been decent. Shout out Jackson Dart, my savior. But they look good. He's got a quick release. He's been putting pressure on defenses, not taking a lot of sacks. So 6 might be a little crazy, but with the sample size and the opponents, I got to give him his credit. He did, put a lot of pressure on that Georgia defense. That maybe isn't what we thought it was, but still impressive. 7, it's Diego Pavia. Gotta love it. That kid's electric. What a game last week. I think he just, epitome of a bounce back game. He had a tough game in Tuscaloosa, hosting LSU defense that's pretty good. And he just dominated with the legs through the air. He looked really sharp, quick decisions, taking care of the ball, right? He deserves to be top 7 on this list with a, chance to move up if they keep winning. I know they got another big game this week, so we'll come back to it next week. And then 8, 9, and 10 is kind of just me being a fan of the Big Ten. It's kind of gross, but 8's Dante Moore.
Yep.
Good team, good quarterback. Got to give him his flowers. And then 9 and 10, and I don't even know. I didn't really know where to go with 9 and 10. I kind of just put these two on here because I was a fan of watching them. I think they're decent. They're just kind of on average teams or kind of overshadowed by those bigger teams. I got 9 Jaden Mayava and 10 Luke Altmaier. So those two have been, a product of good offenses. They don't put the ball in harm's way too much. They're also not, huge threats on the run. They're not really, fun to watch in terms of like a Haynes King where they're running all over the field, making plays. But they're products of good offenses and they're putting together a few wins. I know that those two lost. One lost to one of the other, and the other one lost to Luke lost to Ohio State through his first interception, which I'll give him. And I mean, a lot of people are going to do that, so can't keep him off this list, and that's going to wrap up my top 10. And that's all Big Ten, all SEC except for Haynes King. So, like I said, a lot of like we talked about previously. That's a lot of glaze, but I think they deserve it.
Yeah, I actually had Mayava written down and then I erased him, so he would be on my list. He is not going to be on my list, but
Lincoln Riley quarterbacks are usually good, and that's
yes.
probably due to him, but he's also playing well. So
I think he can make every throw in the bag. I think just the Notre Dame loss and he's thrown some interceptions that haven't been great, but other than that, he's right up there with a lot of those guys.
yeah,
Um, but yeah, I like the list. I think yeah, like you said, a lot of them are going to be good teams, top teams. When I do mine, I'm going to go a little bit different. I've got a lot of good teams, a lot of top teams, but I've also got some guys that are in here that I just think are playing really good football and going a little bit unnoticed, maybe not unnoticed, but in some regard, they're not getting the spotlight as much as I wish they would. And so I'm gonna go ahead and start it off. You had Julian saying at number one. I'm gonna take you took the best team in the Big Ten. I'm gonna go with the best team in the SEC. I'm gonna put Ty Simpson at number one. I think he's played incredibly so far. I think he's got one interception and like 19 touchdowns. So he is just on fire. And he's got great receivers, obviously, but he's just been playing so well. So I think it's very hard to knock him. That quarterback rating has just been through the roof. And then number two, I'm going to go Mendoza. Like you said, can't put him lower than three. And I kept him at two. I think he's just surprised everyone, and he's taking an IU team that people don't really know the weapons that are on that IU team. They don't know the receivers, or at least they didn't going into the season. The tight ends on that team, nobody knew much about the offensive line. Like he's taking a team that was very underrated and just shutting everyone up. So I think you got to give a lot of credit there to Mendoza. Three, it's my boy. I love him. He's got that dog. I'm definitely going to buy his jersey, especially if he beats Georgia. It's going to be Haynes King. I've got him all the way up at three just because I think he puts that team on his back. I think he does, out of all the quarterbacks I'm going to read off on the list, maybe other than one, I think he does the most for his team in terms of he carries the ball the most, he throws the ball the most. I mean, he's the one that is dictating everything for that game. And if he's having a bad game, they're probably going to lose. But good for them. He never has a bad game. So Georgia Tech keeps on rolling. That's going to be number three for me, Haynes King, true dual threat. And then number four is going to be a little bit different. Somebody you didn't have on your list. I'm going to put Sawyer Robertson of Baylor up there. I think this guy's an NFL talent. I think this guy is elite. And I'm not just saying this because I'm an Auburn fan, and this is one of Auburn's few bright spots on the entire season is that they beat him. And so yeah, I am saying it a little bit kind of like that. But even in that game, he threw for 400 yards. He's leading the league, the entire league in passing yards by over 150 yards. He's got 21 touchdowns, got some bad interceptions, but in general, he's just been playing lights out in an offense that asks him to do a lot. And so I love Sawyer Robertson. I think he's great. I think he's going to play on Sundays. But that Baylor team just that defense isn't very good, and their team overall just has some problems. So not him. Number five, I'm gonna head back to the SEC. Also go with somebody that's not on your list. Similar situation to Haynes King. I'm gonna put Taylon Green. I don't know why this guy just like electrifies me. I just love the way that he plays. I loved him last year. I love him this year. I think Taylon Green is criminally underrated a lot of the time. And that Arkansas team isn't very good. Even when they're losing their coach, he's still putting up a fight. Who do they? I mean, they played Tennessee and they lost by three, and he's still carrying that team on his back. And then this last weekend they played Texas A&M, put up 42 points on that team, which you can say what you want about Arkansas and Texas A&M. Putting up 42 points on anybody, is a great, great result. So I think he's made some great results. I think he's in a bad situation, but he's up there on my quarterback list. Number six is going to be Diego Pavia. Got to put him in there. Dude is just an absolute animal, an absolute dog. Like you said, amazing bounce back game this weekend playing against LSU. This was a spot where I think Vandy was in a delicate situation where everything could have came crashing down. I said this when we filmed that preview episode, but I thought everything could have came crashing down for Vandy, and they lose to Alabama, they lose to LSU, and then all of a sudden the narrative is Vandy doesn't beat huge teams. They don't get huge wins. Like they had that upset against Alabama, but they're really not as good as everybody thinks. And now Vanderbilt is vying for a playoff spot, and I never thought that we'd say that in a million years. So shout out to both those guys, Mendoza and Pavia, for carrying those programs as much as I don't like Indiana. I mean, they deserve all the flowers they'll get this year. Then number seven, I'm going to put Julian Sand, who I know is your number one. I'm going to put him at seven, not because I don't think he's a very good quarterback. He's got 80% completion percentage. He might be better than a lot of these guys, just flat out. I just think I get a tough look at Julian Sand because I don't know what's Julian Sand sometimes, and I don't know what is Carnell Tate and Jeremiah Smith and that offensive line and that defense just getting him the ball back over and over again. So I've got him probably a little low for what people would have him, and I'm okay with people saying that he's one or two. I think that makes complete sense. I'm gonna put him at seven just for my list and what I'm basing my criteria off of. Number eight, I don't, I kind of can't believe I wrote this down. Um, fuck, no, I'm not gonna change it. We're gonna keep it. Um, I put Byron Brown of South Florida. I I watched this guy play against Boise State, and I was like, we got a mini Cam Newton. Like, we got a minute. Like, this guy is a machine. He plays with moxie. He plays with swagger. I just like him. So this is just a personal bias pick, and I think South Florida's going to get that spot. for the last spot in the playoffs. And while I don't think they're going to win a lot of games, I think Byron Brown is going to show everybody on a national stage that he is a dog and that he'll probably, if he doesn't go somewhere else, he'll probably transfer to a big program. Like if he doesn't go to the NFL or something, he'll go to a big program and everybody's going to see him on display this next year if he has that opportunity. So I just love that guy. That's kind of a shout out for the future. But yeah, crazy one to throw in there. And then the last two are going to make a lot more sense. I'm going to have Dante Moore at 9. I think the guy's an animal. I think he's great. I think he can make every throw in the book. Look, he had a bad game against not a bad game per se, but they did lose to Indiana. And I've said before I don't like that loss. I thought that was a bad loss. But I do like Dante Moore. And I think Oregon's going to be dangerous come end of the season. We've talked about that a little bit, that when it comes to the end of the season, they're really going to have their game together. And when Oregon has all the pieces clicking, they're right up there with some of the best teams in the country. So I think he could definitely rise on my list. I've got him at a safe 9, but I think that's about as far down as he's going to go on this list, unless he does something crazy bad in the future. Finally, last but not least, it's the Georgia boy. It's Gunnar Stockton. He looks 45 years old, but he plays with 20-year-old legs. So I love it. I think he showed a lot in every game so far. I think he showed a lot in that Tennessee game. I talk about that fourth down throw. I think he showed a lot in that Auburn game, that run that he had to kind of seal it, put it away, 20-yard run. And I didn't realize how much he ran the ball. Is like it was my big thing. I didn't realize how much of a dual threat he really was. And it gives Georgia this whole other dimension that nobody's thought about before. So I like what he's doing with that team. I think we're going to see him go head to head with some of these other quarterbacks on this list, and it's just going to be amazing to watch. But that's going to round out my top 10. So I've got one, two, three, four, five, six, 7 of my 10 are Big Ten SEC, and then 3 of them are going to be one ACC, one Big 12, one Group of 5. So I try to kind of do it like the playoffs would be. Hopefully, we see a lot of these guys in the playoffs. But that's going to round out my list. So
There you go. I like it. Giving a little bit of credit to some guys that maybe we're not watching on a weekly basis, like Sawyer, like Byram. What is his name? Byron. When you said that, I was like, who? But hey,
Byron Brown,
we'll
just go,
probably
go
see
turn
that.
on some tape. You'll
We'll see. We'll see that guy later in the year, like you said. Hopefully, in the first round of the playoffs, maybe a little bit of an SMU case where they get their ass handed to them. But we'll see. It'll be fun. Okay, we're having fun. But shocked to see Gunners that low on your list. Honestly, I thought I was waiting. I was honestly gonna see if you had him at all. I was getting nervous once we got to 10 there. I was like, is he gonna put Gunner in there? I'm glad you got him in there. But I like the list. I mean, we'll once again, it's still early. This is just for the fun of it. We'll see how these guys handle some bigger opponents, and then now that teams are accumulating, tendencies and film, how
Mhm.
they're able to deal with different defensive game plans should be interesting. And like you said, a good point is a lot of these quarterbacks get help from their defenses, keeping offenses on the field, getting rest, stuff like that. A lot of those things add up. Like poor Taylor Green has caught no breaks. Just having to put up 40 points to win is so hard. But he's good talent. Probably a really good athletic profile for like the NFL draft. Somebody
Mhm.
might fall in love with him like they fell in love with Anthony Richardson for God knows why. But yeah, we'll see. Maybe we should do one if you. I'll ask you this:
Mhm.
if you're the number one pick in the NFL draft, which quarterback are you taking?
Um, I can. It doesn't matter if they're not a freshman or if they're
Just yeah, it could be anybody.
anyone in football right now.
If
I'm
you
talking.
needed a kickstart of your NFL franchise, who are you going with?
I'm looking at this list right now. I'm gonna take Ty Simpson. He's my
Okay,
one.
okay,
He's
that's probably who I would have went with. That's fair. I like that. And you know who it won't be? Carson Beck.
Yep.
Fuck you.
Oh, yeah.
No, but Ty Simpson. A lot of these guys. So I'll say it now. We'll probably talk about it later in the year too. But a lot of these guys that are going to be draft eligible are going to need pretty good situations coming into the NFL for them to succeed.
Mhm.
Like you see guys like Bryce Young hasn't really hit his stride because Panthers are terrible and they just don't help him at all in terms of like weapons or offensive line. They got Tet now, and you see that it's kind of working. He got hurt, but that's kind of what this QB class is going to need to be. They're going to need to fall in the right spot. Like poor Cam Ward is another example of, just getting absolutely screwed. I mean, Brian Callahan should have never been an NFL coach. Right. And now Caleb looked like a bad pick last year for some reason, but that's because of Eberflus's circus. And now he's got Ben Johnson and he's cooking. But I'm gonna go with Ty Simpson as well. I think that's a good one. He's got good feet, good arm. But he's gonna need to fall to a good team in order to succeed at the next level right away. Hopefully he'll, you know, get to develop a little bit like a Jordan Love or I'm not going to say, I'll say Patrick Mahomes, but that's the first name that came to mind is somebody who sat for a little bit and then played. But,
Yeah, something that is nice about this though, I'm looking at this list and it's granted our number ones were different, but unlike other years, there's not a clear number one draft pick or clear number one choice of who your top quarterback is this year. So it's been really interesting to see these guys like battle it out and more on a week to week basis instead of just Cam Ward's going to be Cam Ward.
right. Yeah, it'll be curious. I'm curious to see if a quarterback goes 1-1. I don't think it will be, to be honest with you. It'll probably go to one of these like defensive guys. I hope to see Jeremiah Love go pretty high.
No,
He's a
same,
beast.
same.
Um,
Ruben Bain's pretty good for Miami as well.
yeah,
That guy's up there on a lot of draft boards.
yeah. So it'll be interesting to see.
And then quickly before we wrap it up, I'll just mention a couple guys that weren't on either of our lists because I have them both up here that have good teams. Neither of us said Marcel Reed, who
Yeah.
Texas A&M is a very good team right now, and they're in the top five. Um, Curious, maybe your take on to why that is.
Um, it's a good it's a good question because he's played pretty well. Um, I thought he would light up the board a little bit in terms of like rushing stats and like because I feel like he's a dual threat kind of guy, but he hasn't really like lit it up crazy. Right, he's rushing for touchdowns, but that's about it. He's done a good job of like not taking sacks, which isn't probably why they've played so well. But in terms of like natural throwers, it's a little bit inconsistent for me that I probably wouldn't put him on the list. Like he threw for less than 50% completion rate against Notre Dame. Like, that's interesting. They still put up 41 points,
Yeah.
right? So I mean, I don't. It's a guy that I don't really have a read on. That's probably why I didn't put him in my top 10. And I'm kind of just waiting for them to lose. They got a huge game this week against another quarterback, Nussmeier, who could definitely be on this list. He played actually really well against Vandy, had some good throws under pressure, but they haven't put together the results for me to put him in my top 10 because a lot of this was favoring teams. Quarterbacks have made their teams play well, but that's a good one for Marcel Reed. I'm just kind of weird about him and that team.
He hasn't played a lot of competition either, other than that Notre Dame game, and he's thrown a pick in every game except for that Arkansas game this last week. So, and that is Arkansas. So, I mean, I didn't have him on mine either. I'm just pointing that out that he is probably up there on a lot of people's list. But we don't have him, so we'll see how it plays out. Hopefully, Texas A&M, Texas A&M's, and then we'll be proven right by not having him up there. And then the other two where you mentioned Nussmeier and then CJ Carr of Notre Dame,
Okay.
maybe you could put in there, but. I like both the lists. I like all the quarterbacks that are on here. I think there's a lot of Big Ten SEC because that's where the competition is. That's where you get proven. So,
Yeah, Nas is a good one because that's probably another, when we talk about NFL draft, that's another name that's probably going to come up because
yeah.
he's just played for a while and has a lot of experience, which is probably something you look for when you're a GM.
Mhm.
But they kind of have the issue with a little bit of like stale play calls, a little bit. Um, like I just said, he played really well under pressure. Like I don't know how there were a bunch of times where I was like, oh, that's a sack or an
Mhm.
incompletion. Like he looked like he was just throwing the ball to get rid of it, but it was actually on the money. Like that is so hard to do
Yeah.
when you're facing all out pressure. So he actually surprised me a little bit, but they weren't really getting him as a team and as an offensive scheme. They weren't really putting him in a good spot to succeed. And then CJ Carr. That's another one because I think we've harped on it. That's a run first team, so
Mhm.
it's kind of a little bit. It kind of gets overshadowed a little bit, and He's not going to be one that lights up the stat sheet for me, and I just don't want to put him in my top in the top 10 over guys that are kind of being the forefront of their offense and essentially winning games for their teams. But which Carr is doing now, but maybe not as much as some of these other guys.
Yep. Well, I mean, we'll see a lot more. Another week of college football coming up this Saturday. We're speaking on Marcel Reed. He's walking into Death Valley, so I guess we'll get the full picture on him then.
Yeah,
Uh,
well, so wait, let's
yeah,
decide which games we're gonna go attack right now. Let's do it right now. We
yeah.
got we
We'll do
got
it live.
Ole Miss and Oklahoma. That's a pretty big one. That's a noon kick on ABC. We'll probably talk about that one. Mateer getting healthy. I had a little bit of uh, Trinidad Chambliss glaze on my face, but
Yeah,
we'll talk
wow.
about that.
Yeah.
We could revisit Vandy because they're hosting Missouri at 3:30. Um,
We should
and
definitely do that. I agree.
okay, and then Jesus, the SEC man, just dominating the slate. Texas A&M and LSU you just mentioned. We'll definitely hit those three.
Yeah, if we want a sneaky one, we could go to the Big 12. I know we've avoided it for a lot of points, but we could go BYU at Iowa State.
I think we should. I think we don't do it a ton. Let's do that one.
Well,
BYU.
BYU deserves some love. We haven't talked about them yet, and they just beat Utah, so I think they're a big team. That's
Okay,
coming up. So,
let's do that one for sure. And then
and then we could even do the group. I mean, the group of five has got their biggest matchup probably all season with South Florida and Memphis. But um, other than
we
that, I'm
could do
looking
that one.
through.
You know what? Let's do it because you mentioned that kid on your top 10, and now I want to watch a little bit of him and field an opinion because that
Yeah,
one caught me off guard. But
you'll find some good clips. I'll tell you that when you
all
bring
right,
up
all
your
right.
clips on
I
Friday,
trust your opinion here. I'm
you're
not
gonna
I'm
have
not
some
I'm
fun.
not downplaying it here. I'm intrigued.
Yes, no, exactly. So let's just run through it real quickly. We said Ole Miss, Oklahoma, noon game, South
Correct.
Florida at Memphis, noon game, Missouri, Vandy, BYU, Iowa State, and then Texas A&M, LSU. So that's five.
Bingo. We'll hit five of them.
Word.
We'll hit them quick and then get into Saturday, man. Another good one.
Yep.
Another big moving day for the SEC. This one should be interesting. I'm hoping Mateer is healthy because that's going to be a big one. He kind of struggled in the Red River, and then if Pavia can keep it rolling,
Yep.
and then that's a big one for the Marcel Reed Garrett Nussmeier argument on the road. See if Marcel can continue the success, and maybe LSU can get a spark going because they've lost some big ones, Ole Miss and Vandy to start the year.
Yep. No, I agree. So should be another good week of college football. Thank you guys for tuning in. If you guys come back Friday, we will have our picks again when we are. This last
I,
week was better.
we're pretty. I like where we're headed here. I
Oh
mean,
yeah.
we'll talk about my deep sea dog and how horrendous that was, but we got one. We got
We did
LSU,
get one. A deep sea
Louisville,
dog did
Louisville,
strike Friday night
Louisville
football.
smacking. We may have to. Is there any Friday games this week? It doesn't look
Yeah.
like anything worth a watch, but we'll get into it.
So we'll get into it. Yep. And then we've got all those picks coming on Saturday. Obviously, we'll focus on the marquee games. We'll throw some other best bets and we'll talk about what we had go right and wrong last week. So we hope to see you guys there on Friday. Hope you guys have another great week and we will see you then.
Yes, sir.
Peace.